From the campus of Yale University, this is Business Talk with Jim Campbell, nationally syndicated across the country on the Biz Talk Radio Network and coming to you from our flagship stations, Yale Radio WYBC and 1490 AM WGCH Greenwich. All talk and all business, 60 minutes of radio with leading figures from the world of business along with the business of politics and sports. 20 years after the brutal murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and the OJ Simpson Murder Trial of the century captivated a nation, Nicole Brown Simpson's sister speaks out boldly on surviving loss, depression, and escaping suicide, finding peace and taking on the stigma of mental illness. Today on Business Talk with Jim Campbell, Tanya Brown now leads a successful life as an author, certified life coach with a master's degree in psychology. She's now a public speaker on mental health and domestic violence issues. Her mission to help the 350 million people worldwide suffering from depression and to help break the stigma attached to mental illness. She got a new book out, Finding Peace Amid the Chaos, My Escape from Depression and Suicide, with her co-writer William Croyle, who's the author of I Choose to Be Happy, A School Shooting Survivor's Triumph Over Tragedy, An Angel in the Rubble, The Miraculous Rescue of 9/11's Last Survivor. Welcome, Tanya. We're honored to have you today. How are you?
Thank you so much. Wow, what a great introduction.
Well, thank you. Out in California. Most of the time we do business, but resiliency and overcoming setbacks is a huge part of the ingredients for success in business. And then my own family, prior generations, has been a lot of alcoholism and stuff like that. So I think taking on mental illness and showing us how you've turned your life around is great for this show. So we appreciate you giving us the time. Let me go back. This is the 20th year after the unfortunate death of your sister. Wanted to see how's your family dealing with it this year, and give us a sense.
You know what? Everybody is doing well. It's been 20 years, so we've had our time to grieve, we've had our time to cry and laugh, and we've gone on and we've moved on. But you've got a missing link that will never be filled, and it's just you learn to live life without that person, and I think that's the defense that God kind of gives you, where you just learn to live, you learn to move on, and time is your best friend.
How is your feeling for OJ Simpson at this stage? Is he sort of somebody you've let go of completely? You still harbor a lot of hatred?
No, you know what? I've let that part go. I have to. In fact, last night my mother and I, we were sitting at the table with my sister and my other nephew, and I was saying to them that it was my mom's beautiful attitude and her incredible state of forgiveness and acceptance that truly made us who we are today. I firmly believe that if my mom was stuck in a victimization role through this entire ordeal, I believe then we would have all been victims. And for 20 years, we could have easily lost our lives. And, it was for my mom. She gave us that acceptance. We have to accept the things that we cannot change. It's kind of that serenity prayer. And it's her. She was our rock through all of it. So, OJ is like, he's just not part of our conversations. We don't wake up thinking about him. We don't spend our days thinking about him. It's just kind of, he's vapor to me.
A lot of character your mother showed. You also, in your book, you quote your father right after the acquittal, saying the kids lost their mother, they need a father, and which to me showed a lot. What are Sydney and Justin, I think, are the kids? Where are they now?
They are in Georgia, and they are adults now. I think Sydney is like 28 or 29, and Justin's maybe 26. I don't know. They grow up too fast. I don't even know their ages. But they're professionals. They've finished their school, and again, they have gone on with their lives. And I'm glad that you took that excerpt out of the book, because that is who I was raised by. I was raised by a father who just is a good man and basically said, the kids lost their mother. This is their dad. And, it's very bittersweet for us, for the general public. They are happy that he's in jail. He is in prison. For us, it's the children's dad. So it's very different from our point of view.
Do you have any contact with them?
No, I haven't spoken to him probably since, I don't even know. I think maybe since he was living in Florida. I don't even remember. I think the kids were still in high school or junior high. It's been a while.
What going back to the night in June of 1994, or right after? Tell us how did your family hear about it, and what was the first things that went through the whole family?
Oh gosh, it was a horrific morning. It happened early. It was about 6:30 in the morning, and I'm not a morning person, so I was out like a light, and all of a sudden I heard the screams that. Yeah, they're unimaginable. I couldn't even imitate them if I tried. And it was Denise coming down the hallway, and she was screaming and crying. And she, I got up and I went to the room next to mine because we were all living together. And she sat on her son's bed with her arms around him, just crying. And I go, Denise, what's the matter? And she goes, Coco's dead. And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I was like, who? She was like, Coco, your sister. And I'm like, who's Coco? She goes, Nicole, your sister. And I was like, oh, no, that's impossible. You just saw her last night. Life cannot be taken overnight. That's how surreal this was. Like, this kind of stuff happens. Death happens to other people. It doesn't happen to us or in this capacity. And then I walked down the hallway and I saw my mom sitting at the kitchen table. And I go, Mom, is it true? And she nodded her head. And then I was like, I need confirmation from my dad. And I went to his master bathroom and I saw him put his head on his chest, he had his arm rested on the bathroom sink with his head down, and he's just pounding his hand on the kitchen or on the bathroom sink. And I go, Daddy, is it true? And he goes, yes. And, you've got to imagine, here we are one night, the night before, our lives were totally normal, of whatever normal is. And then the next day, you've got this tragedy. Not only was it a tragedy, it was a public tragedy. And so when you turn on the news, that's all we saw. And for other people, it's a murder. It's a body under a blanket. For us, my mom said, holding my hand in the living room that morning, she says, that's my kid. So I view our news totally different when I see a tarp over a body during, whatever type of a crime, because that is somebody's kid. And it was a rough, dramatic, traumatic, life-altering morning.
The defense, as you know, tried to shred Nicole's character, party girl with Faye Resnick, Colombian drug issue. Tell us what Nicole was really like and what we don't know about her.
Thanks for asking that, because everybody always thinks that she was this party girl and she was a battered woman. And it's like, okay, yeah, she was battered. And when her life was bad, yeah, it was really bad. But my sister did not do drugs. She hated drugs. I remember her saying things about OJ when he would do drugs. I mean, my sister was just like, my God, no, that was not part of her life. And, Faye, I just think, honestly, she just wanted her 15 minutes, and now we're seeing her on the Beverly Hills Housewives, so let her do her thing, But Nicole, what I want people, in fact, I'm doing a tribute luncheon to Nicole on June 7th here in Newport Beach at Pelican Hill. And this is my goal. I want people to see that she was a mom. She was a mom first and foremost. She would, make homemade birthday cards and Christmas invitations and, bake and create. She loved to cook. And she would always if you didn't have a place to go for the holidays, or if it was your birthday, or you were alone for any X, Y, and Z reason, she would say, come on over. And that was Nicole. She loved family. She loved gatherings. She loved to entertain and have dinners. And, when she would set a table for us, people, for me, when I set a table, it's a plate, a table, a fork, a knife, and a paper napkin. With her, she would go all out. Her fine china, her fine crystal. It's like she was carte blanche, creme de la creme when it came to entertaining. And these were not entertaining fancy celebrities. These were just like her family and her friends. She was like a diamonds and pearls kind of girl. You could take her to McDonald's 1 minute and you could take her to the Ritz-Carlton on the same day. She appreciated life. She, you could see pictures of her in shorts and bathing suits. And, we grew up by the beach. So she was, she was a surfer when she was a little girl, so that's the image that I want people to get of her. Not this famous Hollywood girl, because that was not her. She was just a simple girl from Laguna Beach.
And I have to say, you talk in the book about her having 80 photo albums she put together, most of them with not even her pictures in it. And there's some great pictures in the book. She's a very beautiful woman. This is Business Talk with Jim Campbell, coming to you on the Biz Talk Radio Network, over 300 stations across the country. You can go to biztalkradio.com, find the station closest to you to listen on the Internet or to get podcasts of our show. You can follow us on Twitter at Campbell Biz Talk, Campbell B-I-Z Talk. Coming next, we'll have a little bit more on the Simpson story and then spiraling into darkness. Stay with us. And we're talking to the sister of Nicole Brown Simpson, now a life coach. That's Tanya Brown. I wanted to ask you a couple more questions. Tanya, did you feel, your folks, in retrospect, that you missed the signs of domestic violence, and was there a lot of guilt over that?
No, you know what? When you're uneducated on something, in fact, I just had this conversation with somebody at a rehab. When you are uneducated on a subject, no matter what it is, and then you are touched by that adversity, you take it upon yourself to educate yourself. It may be a little bit too late in your own personal life, but we weren't ignorant. We were just uneducated. Did we feel guilty? No, because we didn't know that, somebody that claims to love you and gave you 2 kids and, married you would actually, cut you to pieces. It's like you don't think about that. So we just, as a family, collectively, we started educating ourselves, because we were getting letters from all over the world. I mean, I'm talking globally, like just the Browns, Dana Point, the Browns, California, just letters of support. Crazy. It was absolutely amazing how much support there was. But a majority of those letters were survivors of domestic violence sharing with us how we needed to educate ourselves on the epidemic of this. So there was really no guilt, because, at least for me, because I didn't know. I know that Denise testified on domestic violence, right. But again, when you're not educated on something, you can't take ownership of what the outcome is. You just can't. Now, you'll drive yourself into the ground if you do.
Now, the fact that there was a 1 in 7 billion chance that he didn't do the murder, and there's only 3 billion people on the earth then, and he got acquitted, was that hard for you guys to let go of that?
No, you know what? It was more, and that was a really strong, I tend to lean towards science a lot in my own brain because of psychology and my studies, so I was very familiar with the DNA, and then that's kind of what put the stamp on the envelope. I was like, okay, that's it. But you know what? It's just, the whole thing was just so surreal that it's so hard for me to go back there in my mind and really tap into that emotion, because it was so big and surreal. It was whatever was going to come our way. It's like we just had to accept it.
It was the first time that in my life that I'd been able to see a trial on TV, as you call it, one of the first times it was ever, and it was a disillusioning experience, because I was sort of naive and believed. And I watched the judge allow things like the glove evidence go in, even though the glove was missing before Furman ever got there. And it was just a complete abortion of justice.
Yeah, it was Hollywood, unfortunately. Yeah. Everybody, it was sad. Everybody just wanted their little taste of Hollywood. And, Nicole and Ron are the ones who had to suffer from it. But, again, it is what it is. People were just, I don't know what drove some of those decisions. Again, I don't remember a lot of it because it was 20 years ago. But I'm like, are you so stupid that come on, the common sense is that leather shrinks when it gets wet. Yeah. Obviously, it's not going to fit. So it's just some real stupid mistakes were made. Some real stupid mistakes.
Now, you had 2 of your best friends die. Then obviously your sister died. You had 6 high school friends who died over several years, and you had a breakup with your fiance right before the wedding, and that's obviously the Nicole Simpson Brown murder. Tell us what happened now when your life spiraled out of control?
This is what my message and the purpose of me writing this book is that I kept anybody who struggles with anything, they were in the forefront of my mind when I was writing this book. So I wanted to share pretty much everything, every pain, every struggle, so people can understand that no matter how big, no matter how small any life challenge is that when we don't face our stuff as it arises, as it pops up in our daily life, if we just suppress it and neglect to feel it or, hoping things will go away, things don't go away. Eventually, life and pain catches up with you. And that's what happened to me. Like you had mentioned, I did lose 6 friends of mine during high school. And back in the 80s, drinking and driving, stupid accidents. But back then, we didn't have the crisis counselors that kids have today. If something happens, there's a first responder immediately. With us, our counselors were, where do you want to go to college after high school? We didn't have violence like the kids have today. So what did I do? I just didn't know where to go. I didn't know I actually needed to go talk to somebody. So I just kind of picked myself up and carried on through life. If I knew that there was a counselor, I probably would have gone. I mean, who knows? But all that, I just suppressed my feelings for, over the years, over the losses. And then after when my best friend Harissa died, that was like my first bout of serious depression. And it was because of her death, but also it was a culmination and a buildup of everything that, was happening, that, happened to me in high school. So when she got killed, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, typical clinical depression, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. And then things started turning around where I was sleeping too much and I was eating too much. And from that, I became an overeater and I ballooned up to 200 pounds. So we hear bulimia, we hear addictions, we hear prescriptive drug overdoses, we hear all of that because people want to stuff, they want to fill that hole that's in their soul. That I actually got that quote from Russell Brand, the actor, and I thought it was so fitting because we want to fill that space of pain, to make us feel better. And that's what was happening to me. But I didn't know that I was actually, going to get worse.
Now, 10 years later in 2004, 10 years after the death of your sister, you actually had a mental breakdown. We have a couple more minutes in this segment. What exactly does that mean and what happened?
Well, I was thrown into a psych ward, so my message is you've got to face these triggers as they come up in your life because when they're unresolved and when they're not dealt with or coped with, stuff catches up, like I had mentioned. So my ex-fiance canceled the wedding 4 days before. And that was a huge trigger, obviously. But for 1 month, I spiraled down into a dark, deep hole of despair. I popped pills. I drank wine every day. I hated my life. I hated everyone around me. Depression, anxiety, very familiar. But the emotions that I was experiencing during that time were so unfamiliar, and they were very scary. And then on October 9th in 2004, a family friend of ours came over, said something, and I flipped out. I basically snapped. I was that person that you see on Law and Order. I was that person. And I lashed out at everybody in my family, and I let everybody have it. Everybody, I spoke my piece, my mind, and I got to Denise, and she goes, you need to get some coping skills. And I'm like, what are those? What are coping skills? We're not taught coping skills in school. And then the next thing I know, I'm going to my bedroom and I poured a bottle of Klonopin in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other, and I was done. Like, I seriously was so tired and so fed up of all the loss, the headache, the heartache, the tragedy. I was done. And I was ready to do my life in.
Taking on the stigma of mental illness in our next segment. This is Business Talk with Jim Campbell, featuring interviews with leading figures from the business world and the worlds of politics and sports. Business Talk with Jim Campbell is Sundays from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern. We're talking with Tanya Brown. She's the author of a new book, Finding Peace Amid the Chaos, My Escape from Depression and Suicide. We're going to talk about the stigma of mental illness. Tell us, Tanya, how prevalent is depression?
You know, it's like statistics say 1 out of like 3 people walking around suffer from depression. But honestly, I think each and every one of us has experienced some sort of depression on some level. I believe everybody. It can be either life debilitating. It could take the joy completely out of your life, or it could be just like, God, I'm just kind of stuck in my life and I need a life coach to kind of kick me out of this rut that I'm in. But I think majority of Americans, if not every single one of us, has honestly experienced some sort of depression on some level in our lives. And if not now, I can almost guarantee like in years to come. It's more prevalent than we think. That's why I don't really rely on statistics. That's why I don't really rely on statistics. Because statistics are just a number, and that doesn't even, it doesn't include the people who go seek, medications or go to a doctor. And doctors, speaking of physicians really need to take the time to assess their patients, because depression can manifest physically in our bodies. So let's not be quick to pop a pill. Let's really sit down and assess what's going on in the personal life of your patient, because there may be something there that is actually depression, and it's manifesting itself as maybe a stomach ulcer or, some sort of other physical ailment.
You were diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Tell us what that is. And when you were in the psych ward, did it end up reducing your own stigma against mental illness? And I understand from your book you had to deal with the National Enquirer stalking you while you were in the psych ward.
Another part of craziness. You know what? My experience in the psych ward and with medications. What was the first part of the question? Kind of escaped me, but when I was thrown into the psych ward, I went willfully. I wasn't like just thrown in. I was like, get me out of here. I'm going wherever I need to go. Just get me safe, because I'm out of my mind. I knew that. I have a newfound empathy, compassion, understanding of those who struggle on any level. I was in there with people who were cutters to release emotional pain. I was there with people in severe psychosis, with schizophrenia, with bipolar disorders, you name it. I was in there with them and sitting in one room in group therapy. And I'm like, okay, I suffer from pretty much an isolated incident of major depression disorder. I still get depressed, but I know how to manage it and I know how to cope with it. I still get anxious, but again, I know how to cope with it and move on. But there are people who struggle every single day. And the gal that wrote my foreword, she has bipolar disorder, and she speaks openly about it, and she struggles. And, I think the more candid and the more vulnerable you are in sharing, hey, I struggle from depression, I struggle from severe anxiety, I have severe bipolar disorder, 1 or 2, and I think the more that we can really share and be open with it, I think the more chances people will feel comfortable in embracing, maybe their own illness, or maybe it will give them some sort of aha moment that maybe they're experiencing something, or maybe they're seeing something in a loved one. So I have a newfound compassion and understanding for those who really struggle.
I think you mentioned this in the book. Domestic violence can be linked to depression and mental illness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything's kind of related to one another. You drink, you're going to get depressed. When you're depressed, you're going to drink. When you are battered every single day somebody's telling you how worthless, ugly, fat, stupid you are, that's going to eventually you're going to believe that, because your brain is very powerful, very powerful. And you're shattered every single day by an abusive partner, you're going to be depressed, guaranteed. I'll put myself in front of a train, excuse me if that has happened to a loved one, but that's how serious I am, that you will fall into a deep state of depression. And that's why a lot of victims of domestic violence do commit suicide, because they have no hope. And that's why I wrote this book. I want people, not just for mental illness, I just want people just to get the hope that they need, that life can get better no matter what it is that you're going through. You just got to reach out and get help.
And you got out of the inpatient status to come home, and you had Nicole's dog named Cato, who died.
Yeah, my first day of outpatient. So I got discharged from inpatient, and the very next day, when I'm supposed to start my intensive outpatient, I find Nicole's dog dead on our kitchen floor. So again, It's another loss. But not only was it a loss, it was a chapter of Nicole's life that had ended. And I just remember going into that group and, doing our little check-in. And I'm not familiar how this thing goes. I've never been in something like this before. And the counselor got to me and she was like, "So how you doing?" And I was, expletives were going everywhere. And she was like, "Well, we don't speak that way in group." And for anybody who's listening, if you can't let it out the way that you need to let it out, then that group is not for you, or that counselor is not the right one for you. Because again, if I would have sat on that and, have that, again, suppress that pain, I probably would have been there for, 3 or 4 months. Who knows? So anybody who's in therapy, I encourage you to find a therapist where you can, curse and cry and throw a pillow or, just punch a chair, whatever it is. It's like you've got to do it in a safe environment. But you've got to shop for a therapist where you can be 100% authentic, because then what's the point of going?
Now, with you were diagnosed major depressive disorder, you say that you still, have to deal with it on and off. What's the relationship between? Is there medicine prescribed that you take that really is helping you, or is it therapy that's really helped you, or is it getting exercise, nutrition, doing other stuff? Or does it all mix together?
It's all important. I'm still on medication. I'm on Seroquel and I'm on Lamictal, and they're both mood stabilizers. So I'm not on my Effexor or Wellbutrin anymore. I'm very open with my cocktails, I guess you want to call it. But it's no pill in the world will ever prevent life stress from happening. So it's very important for us to have life management coping skills and tools that we can tap into. So when a life stressor does happen, we're not so reliant on, well, I'm taking a medication and I'll know how to handle it when it comes. Because you know what? You won't. If you don't have coping skills, you won't know how to handle it. So I talk about the importance of exercise. You've got your brain, it's endorphins. It's our little natural happy pill, our happy chemical. Mm-hmm. So it's really important I'm not saying take 4 spin classes a day. Get out there and move. Look at nature. Walk with intention. Look up at the sky. Look at the birds. See the trees move, wherever you're at. Look at the mountains. Go look at the fields. Get outside. Appreciate the nature. Appreciate, no matter how hard it is, no matter what it is that you're going through, you've got to really, and it's so hard. It's so hard to do. Believe me, it is. It's the hardest thing to do, to try to see something good when you're going through something so dark. But I tell you, if you can have that support network that says, hey, you know what? Come on, Joni. Come on, Tanya, whoever it is. I'm going to take you out and we're going to go take a walk just for 10 minutes. And that 10 minutes, seriously, is enough time to divert that attention and, from going down into that dark hole. But it's hard. I'm not saying that it's easy. We're
down to about the last minute and a half. We started off the show mentioning adversity, resiliency. Did you feel you learned these skills? You had them inherently, and do you believe happiness is a learned skill?
It can be a learned skill. I think firmly, even though I was living a life of unauthenticity, I guess, but I always had a happy gene in me. But I think that happiness, and I know happiness can be learned. It is a skill. And when practiced, trying to find the joy, I have met people who were, atheists and didn't believe in anything. Like they were just living for themselves and dark and bitter. All of a sudden, it's like they tap into a part of themselves, either through like a meditation or they read something inspirational, and they have that consistent practice. Then they've turned their lives around completely. So I believe if you want to be happy, you can choose to be happy. Like William's last book, I Choose to Be Happy. It is, I was not born with coping skills, and I think some people have better coping skills than others. But in my case, I had to get thrown in a psych ward to learn them.
And now you can get the best of Business Talk with Jim Campbell Thursday nights, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Go to biztalkradio.com. Coming to you from our flagship stations, Yale Radio, WYBC, and 1490 AM WGCH, Greenwich, Connecticut. And our final national segment, Steps to Finding Peace. We're talking with Nicole Brown Simpson's youngest sister, Tanya Brown. In our final national segment, we'll talk about finding peace. And we mentioned these earlier. You were talking about how your mom said, accept what life presents. And you quote Nicole saying, delete the need to understand. We don't need to understand everything. Some things just are. Talk a little bit about how you let go of such profound stuff that you guys had to.
Everybody dealt with it differently. My sisters and my mom had children to think about. My sisters both have their children, and then, of course, we had Sydney and Justin. So that was their coping outlet, and we had the foundation, so that was a coping outlet. I never coped with it, and so for me to really get out of it and to accept it, I had to learn. I had to find that joy from my mom, and I knew I wanted it. I just didn't know I didn't know the how-to. And then when I was in the hospital, they share these stories with you, these inspirational quotes and these, excerpts from books, and they're all about acceptance. And then you have counselors who come in and they talk a lot about, the AA recovery with, you have to accept the things that you can't change. And and then it brings me back to that quote, delete the need to understand. You don't need to understand everything. Some things just are. And we can drive ourselves literally crazy into the dirt, into the ground, trying to figure out why things go the way they go or happen the way they happen, instead of just sitting back, trying to be calm after when you blow a fuse or whatever. I mean, feel what you're going through, of course. But then, catch yourself and go, what's the lesson in this? Because really I can't change it. I can't bring Nicole back. So I have to accept it. And I think that honestly, my mom has been my role model in that, but I learned the how to do that when I was in the psych ward. I don't recommend it for anybody, so seek therapy outside of the psych ward.
Do I understand you right that you basically, in your mind, you forgave OJ because it set you free, not him? Right.
It's forgiveness, and I think, it's an important thing for all of us to do. If I harbored what has happened to me in all the years of my youth and young adults, and now that I'm in my 40s, if I held on to everything that has happened to me, I'd be miserable. I'd be bitter. I would not be living the life the life that I live, which is of joy. Is it perfect? God, no. Do I still flip out? Yes. But I just don't harbor. And forgiveness isn't about let's have lunch and kiss and make up. It's not about that. It's about, you know what? I'm surrendering to what has happened to me. I'm going to accept what is happening. I'm going to accept this experience. I just, because I can't change it. If I can change it, that's serenity prayer. Give me the courage to change it. But if you can't change it, you have to accept it. And, I would have lost 20 years of my life if I woke up every day thinking about OJ and the murders and Nicole and Ron. Oh my God. I don't want to, no. I had to let that go. So forgiveness isn't for me to have lunch with OJ and have Starbucks, the parking lot that I'm sitting at right now. It's more like I'm just going to, cut this ball and chain so I can be free of this horrible thing that happened to us.
Tanya's tools for...
But you've got to ask for it, Jim, really fast. You've got to ask for it and pray for it and really be intentional about it, because it didn't happen overnight for me. It's a very hard thing to ask for forgiveness. But once you do, and you can ask for that release, it's quite powerful.
I have to say it's very impressive to me, Tanya, because if somebody murdered my sister, it would be awful hard for me to figure out how to move forward. But let's talk about Tanya's tools for change now, going to the final stage here. You start off with set goals and execute. Take us through what you think some of the key tools are.
You know, time management is energy management. We just plow through our day, and we don't slow down, and we don't manage our time very well because we're always rushing to one meeting to the next meeting, rushing kids, and it's like, oh my gosh, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted. So my plan is to have people, you know, take a calendar, a week-long calendar from, you know, Monday through Sunday with the times on the side, and jot out your responsibilities, your to-dos, your meetings, things like this, and you will see on one page how much free time you have. You need to factor in driving time, factor in, you know, those obstacles. You may hit some red lights. You know, it's all about reducing stress. You know, there's this man who's a vice president of a major search engine, and he doesn't even look at his cell phone first thing when he wakes up. He doesn't even check it when he's at the house. He begins to check his email when he goes to the office. What a novel idea, you know? So when you're driving on your way to work, turn off the music, you know, pay attention to your surroundings, look at the trees, of course, keep your eye on the road, but really just kind of go within. We're too rushed all the time. So time management is definitely energy management. I believe in nurturing yourself. You know, it's no matter what it is. It's lighting a candle before you go to bed. Just don't fall asleep with it on. Play some soft music. You can get on Pandora or whatever. I mean, just listen to some soft music. Turn off technology 1 hour before you go to bed. Read a nice inspirational book. Do some journaling. Take a bubble bath. You know, I'm just kind of throwing things out real quickly. We talked about your exercise and your nutrition. You know, nutrition plays a huge part in mental illness and mental health. There's the Amen clinics. Dr. Amen and his wife Tanya are experts in brain health with mental illness versus mental health. He's world renowned, so you can get on his website, the Amen clinics. We're way too hard on ourselves. You know, strive for progress, not perfection. So what if you got an A minus? You got an A minus. You know, don't beat yourself up because you didn't get an A. You know, it's like we're just too hard on ourselves. So it's time to really praise ourselves for the small things that we do. If you're suffering from depression, you know what? Give yourself a big bear hug because you were able to get out of bed today. You know, that's a huge thing. If you're a parent, praise your kids, you know, because praising ourselves and praising other people around us makes us feel good, and then we're paying it forward onto somebody else who may need it.
Tanya, it's a great story and you've turned your life around, and it's really great that Nicole didn't die in vain with all you're doing right now to help everybody. I want to thank Tanya Brown. Her book is Finding Peace Amid the Chaos: My Escape from Depression and Suicide, co-authored with William Kroll, published by Landmark Publishing. You can go to Tanya's website, tanyabrown.net. You can email her at tanya@tanyabrown.net. This has been Business Talk with Jim Campbell. Next show, Sunday, May 18th, our annual show on the Woodstock of Capitalism, the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting where 38,000 shareholders trek to hear the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett's wisdom. We'll be talking with hedge fund manager and noted Buffettologist Jeff Matthews, reporting from Omaha. Thanks to Tanya Brown. Thanks for listening. See you next Sunday on Business Talk with Jim Campbell. You're listening to Business Talk with Jim Campbell. This is Segment 5, Overtime, exclusively for Yale Radio, WYBC. We've been talking with Nicole Brown Simpson's sister and life coach Tanya Brown. She's nicely agreed to stay with us. And Tanya, I want to go a little bit more detail into Tanya's tools for change. We had to kind of go skim them before. So let me ask you about some of them. Be present. Talk a little bit about what that means. And you talk about meditation as well. I like the fact that in radio, breathing is very good to do. Deep breathing before you go on so that you don't appear tense when you're on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Here in Orange County, it's like if you have anxiety, pop a pill, you feel better. I mean, that's just how the lifestyle is here. But little do people know that the main ingredient for anxiety prevention is breathing. and we don't breathe right. We don't breathe full breaths. We breathe very shallow because the majority of the time we're stressed, we're on the go. And you know what? Our cells then fill up with carbon dioxide. And when we don't release that carbon dioxide, it builds up in our system and it damages our DNA and all that stuff. I'm not an expert in any of that. But all I know is that that's when your irritation comes in, your irritability, you become short-tempered. And you know what? Guaranteed, if you're stressed out and having one of those moments, one of those days, guaranteed, if you walk away from whatever you're doing or with whomever you're engaging with, and you sit back and you take some real big gut, let the muffin top over your pants kind of deep breath, guaranteed, you do that 5 times, your stress level and anxiety level will decrease. I do it when I'm in my car. You know, you could do it on your way to work. It's very important to breathe because you're feeding your brain oxygen. It's good to be an airhead. It's good. It's healthy. It's just we need to slow down our lives and really breathe properly, because if you catch yourself not breathing throughout the day in the correct way, you're going to be real irritable. So it's very important, especially in radio and television. You know,
yeah, I like visualization. I like visualization too, and you mentioned that.
Guided imagery, you know, coaches have coaches. You've got Tiger Woods has a coach. You know, everybody, Phil Jackson has coaches. Everybody has a coach. Coaches have coaches. And majority of those coaches practice guided visualization. Where do you plan on taking your life? Like for golf, for example, you know, where do you want that ball to go? In tennis, where on the court do you want that ball to go? What do you want your life to look as? Do you want to, you know, if you're trying to get out of depression, visualize yourself happy. You know, my mom had stage 3C breast cancer. She'd probably kill me for sharing this. But anyway, she had stage 3C breast cancer. And I go, Mom, how in the world are you doing this? Honestly, you're 80 years old, and how are you getting through this? She goes, I visualize myself sitting on the beach, and the waves that are coming in are the good cells, and they're washing all the bad cells away. And we can actually talk ourselves out of illness. Not all the time, but we can. And I'm not saying that worked with my mom because she had like 37 radiation treatments and chemo treatments. But, you know, our brain is so powerful that you can trick it into doing positive things every single day. But it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to be consistent with it. So I love the I am statements. Like, I am strong, I am unique, I am successful, I am wealthy, I am happy, you know, and just not just say it, but say it like you mean it. And I mean, there have been moments where I yelled at myself in the mirror going, Tanya, you're fabulous. I am great, you know, and you've got to talk yourself into happy thoughts and what you want your life to look at or to look as. Negative thinking, how to get out of that, you know, in the world of recovery with overeating and anorexic recovery. They have what's called the rubber band method. I have it's old, but with the people that I used to work with is that you put a rubber band around your wrist, and anytime that you have a bad thought about food or an indulgence over food, you snap that rubber band. And it's like it diverts your attention and it brings you back to the state of being present. And being present in the now and not worrying about what's going to happen 5 seconds or when you get home or the next day, I'm telling you, it will reduce your anxiety. I read a quote on Facebook not too long ago, and it was a beautiful picture, and it said, worrying doesn't take away tomorrow's problems, it takes away today's peace.
We're a lot of folks from Yale will be listening to this overtime segment. What would you tell college kids that are battling with depression to do, and how should they see the symptoms in themselves before it's too late?
Oh my gosh! You know, I fainted my first day of college. I went to UC San Diego, and I was in the infirmary all day. Life management tools, seriously, journaling your struggles down, managing your time, because you're being torn in between activities, friends, sororities, studies. There's a lot of pressure. So time management, getting that calendar down, getting that structure in your life that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during this time, I'm going to batch my these studies. And what I mean by batching is like, okay, I'm going to study sociology, for this amount of time. And just really, I could go on and on about this. So if there's a college student who wants more tools, they can contact me at tanyabrown.net. But first and foremost, like if you are, all of a sudden your grades are falling, you've lost interest in your activities, you've lost interest in friends, you used to wear pink and now you're wearing gray and your personality is matching that. These are signs. I don't know if Yale has this, but I know majority of colleges do. It's called active minds. And you can always start a group on college campuses. It's just a support group. It's a group of people who struggle themselves with mental illness. And, you don't need to jump off a building. You don't need to jump off a bridge like the young girl that inspired me to make a lifestyle change, because I didn't want to end up like her. And she was so much like me. And, she was in college, at the same college that I was attending. And I knew right then and there that, okay, I need to make something happen. I need to make a change happen. And I was putting pressure on myself. So I don't recommend this offhand, but I knew that school was not the right one for me. So I transferred over to another school. But, there are life management tools. Get a lot of sleep. You need 8 hours of sleep. All this 4 to 6 hours of sleep is not enough. You can actually you can actually struggle and suffer from psychosis, being sleep deprived. You will not get any homework done. You will not get good grades. You will not be a pleasant friend or a pleasant boyfriend or girlfriend without proper sleep. These are, start a walking club. When you're in your studies, stop. Harvard Business. I don't know if I should mention Harvard with Yale, but Harvard Business Journal or Medical Journal did a study on save your energy, not your time. So it's the same concept as I had talked before, but in there they did a study that your brain actually shuts down every 90 to 120 minutes. So we need to regroup. We need to walk away from our studies, our project, every couple of minutes or every couple hours and walk around the block. If you're with your study group, start that. Initiate that. Hey, you guys, you know what? We're getting frustrated. We're getting tired. Let's lay off the sugar and the caffeine. Let's, revive somehow. And that's a big thing. Lay off sugar. Sugar plays a huge role in depression. Huge role. Caffeine, huge. But sugar's the leading cause of depression in my eyes. Reduce your alcohol intake. You can still drink if you want. I'm not going to stop you. You're not going to stop yourself. I went to college. I know what you do, but be smart, because you know what? You don't know. We see a lot of bipolar disorders coming out because of the stress that college brings. So the whole thing is about managing your stress levels. Start a yoga class, start a breathing class. The UC San Diego has a Center for Mindfulness Institute. They can look into that, and maybe they want to start into a mindfulness practice. Anything that can reduce stress, hopefully, can prevent mental illness. And, if you're predisposed to it, hopefully it'll, lay dormant a little bit longer. Maybe it'll never come out because you're managing your life and your mental health. There's a lot of studies on mindfulness, on yoga, on breath work. Cognitive behavioral therapy is huge. There's a lot of ways. But if you're noticing this is happening to you, rather be on this side of the dirt and get the help, because you know what? Tomorrow will always be a better day, but you got to get the help. You've got to get the support from somebody that will really guide you through. And either I can help you or a counselor can help you. It's just important for us to get through these life challenges together. But the most important thing is just reach out. And they have my email now, and I encourage people to reach out.
That was great stuff. Talking about that, what exactly do you do as a life coach? Tell us how you work. It's the title of my book. I help people find the peace amid the chaos. Life happens. Life's hard sometimes. Life's very stressful. So I help people manage using my tools for change. I help them, implement and practice and stay consistent on
the things that we talked about, as well as, additional things that they may be challenged with. Some of my tools may not work for them, but they may need something that needs to be addressed, and then I'll find a tool that works for them. But I do my coaching over the phone. I do it over Skype. Very rarely do I, meet face-to-face. Majority of my coaching clients are far away. And, it's about meeting where the person's at. It's meeting you where you're at so we can help you move forward, laying out your goals, where your challenges. I'm very structured. I have them fill out a call prep form so every session is on target. What are your problem areas? What are some obstacles that you ran into? And what coping skills can we integrate and implement next time these challenges happen? So it's really primarily, it's meeting the person where they're at and helping them move forward. But I also work with psychiatrists and psychologists and other counselors with their clients to help them be that in-between person to maybe not address deeper issues, but maybe address things of, motivation, how to get things done. Let's check things off that checklist because things aren't getting done. So, I work with people of different kinds, with different issues, with different concerns, but I'm not a counselor. Even though I have a graduate degree in counseling psych, I really just choose to meet people where they are to help them move forward.
So, Tanya, if I was working with you, would it be for, a short period of time to get me through something, or is this something that someone should view as a longer-term commitment, and what kind of cost are we talking about?
No, and I appreciate that. I don't do hourly. I really don't. I can, but it's going to be a waste of their time and money, and it's going to be a waste of my time because change doesn't happen in an hour. So I have 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month packaging programs. I don't like to talk about the price because I work on a sliding scale. A lot of people can't afford. Yeah, so it's not even up on my website because I don't want to say no to people, and there's always other options other than one-to-one coaching. I do group coaching, for people who want to learn more about it. I'll be doing workshops, online workshops, teleclasses. I'll be doing a lot of things to reach more people with the technology that we have today instead of just doing one-on-one. So there's always options because, of course, one-on-one takes more energy, more time, more tools are given, and so, the price is higher. But if you still want that support and you still want coaching, I'm starting group coaching classes. So there's always options for everybody.
So let's visualize a little bit. 10 years ago, you were in a psych ward. Now you're basically helping the world. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
On top of a hill with 40 dogs. I'll be the little old lady on top of the hill with 40 dogs. You know what? I want to create programs, educational tools, educational programs. My goal in sight is really just to keep educating, get out there and be the best speaker, educator, motivator that I possibly can, continue to change lives. It's my passion. And if I can help one person, and I know I already have, because I'm getting emails that are just amazing. Thank you so much if you've already sent me one. It's just really, you don't know how your story can really impact somebody. It's really amazing. But I've got other books that I'm writing, and I just want to create my Tanya Tools for Change actual book. I want to create a journal, some DVD programs. So but it's all education based, all education.
Now, Denise, your sister Denise Brown is focused on domestic violence as well. Do you two work together at all, or how's she doing with what she's doing?
You know what? Not really, and it's not just because we don't want to. It's just the opportunity doesn't happen. She forever will do her speaking, but she actually started a speakers bureau, the Elite Speakers Bureau. And so she's running that, and it's all crime related, empowerment, child sexual assault, domestic violence, mental health, all pretty much like cause related issues. She's got great speakers. I forever will speak on domestic violence. In fact, I get more inquiries about domestic violence speaking opportunities than I do mental health right now. And, but I forever will speak on domestic violence and teen violence and relationship violence because I think it's too important. And I don't want my sister to die in vain. I want her memory to continue to save lives.
Let me ask you, your dad has Alzheimer's, you mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
How's he doing?
Awful. Awful. You know, we have a caretaker that comes in 4 days a week for 3 hours, but, you know, the majority of the time it's us. It's the family. He's at home, thank God. He served our country as a World War II bomber pilot, B-17. So the VA is taking very good care of my dad. Hospice has been wonderful because he is on hospice now. And I get tears in my eyes. Honestly, I think we are very blessed. Excuse me, I'm getting choked. To have him at home, as hard as it is, believe me, it's hard. We are very blessed to have him at home, and he's blessed to have us around him.
You just gave him a great tribute right there by the emotional nature of that. As we finish off the last question, what do you want Nicole's legacy to be?
You know what? I want people to remember her as a joyful woman who truly loved life. Her life sucked out sometimes, yes, but I want her to be the hope for women, for kids that, you know, they're the lucky ones. I wasn't so lucky, so use me as an example to get yourself safe. And I think that's what Nicole would want, and I think that's what she died for, because that changed the conversation on domestic violence. But I want people to remember her as the fun-loving mom, dad, sister, wife, entertainer. You know, she just she loved life, and I want people to know that she truly, truly loved life, and that's what makes this thing so sad, is that she had such a love for life.
Well, it's a great way to end it, and it's been a great interview. You certainly demonstrating how someone can take life from the bottom to literally the top and following your passion and doing a lot of good works. Thanks to Tanya Brown for staying with us on Overtime. Her book, again, is Finding Peace Amid the Chaos: My Escape from Depression and Suicide. This has been Business Talk with Jim Campbell, nationally syndicated on the Biz Talk Radio Network. And the podcast of this 60-minute commercial-free version will be available right after we get off the air at Yale Radio, WYBC.com, or on iTunes. Search Business Talk with Jim Campbell. Thanks again to Tanya Brown. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next Sunday on Business Talk with Jim Campbell.